In our Faith in America segment this week, another week and more shocking revelations and deflections in what looks like the intentional targeting of Catholics by the Biden Department of Justice and the left. Republicans on Capitol Hill, as well as my next guest, have definitely had enough of all of this. To discuss, the president of Catholic Vote, Brian Burch, America's leading Catholic advocacy organization. The House subcommittee, Brian, on the weaponization of government going after the Biden Department of Justice and the FBI this week over their efforts to infiltrate Catholic parishes and dioceses. Back in March, FBI Director Christopher Wray said the following.
When I first learned of the piece, I was aghast.
As you should be.
And we took steps immediately to withdraw it and remove it from FBI systems. It does not reflect FBI standards. We do not conduct investigations based on religious affiliation or practices, full stop. It was a product by one field office. We do not and will not target people for religious beliefs, and we do not and will not monitor.
Brian, two questions for you. Do you believe that? And what more have we learned about the FBI's efforts since then?
Well, thanks for having me on. No, I don't believe it. And this is why we need to get to the bottom of what's going on inside the FBI. This is not just an issue for Catholics. It's an issue for all people of faith. What we had here was an FBI analyst in a field office authorizing a federal law enforcement agency to spy on people going to church. Again, this is not just a Catholic question. Chris Wray did say that he was aghast. The Attorney General said it was appalling. And we have filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the FBI to have them turn over documents so that we can better understand what went on. Why did this happen in the first place? Why is our federal government authorizing, until we found out, by the way, via a leaked memo, its agents to go in and begin secretly meeting with priests or diocesan officials or even churchgoers in order to use them as tripwires to spy on their fellow Americans?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Brian, your organization is threatening to sue the Department of Justice for more information if it needs to. What specifically are you requesting, and do you think you're going to be stonewalled here?
So last month, we did file this request, as we are entitled to as citizens, that requires the government to be transparent and to turn over any and all related documents to how this memo came to be. The expiration on that request, the requirement for them to get back to us, is the end of this week. And if we don't get what we are entitled to by law, we will file a federal lawsuit next week in order to get that. What we get, we don't know. Certainly, we can see, based on the documents that have been turned over to congressional committees, that there was explicit authorization for the FBI to go in and to go undercover into Catholic parishes to begin determining or deeming what they're calling domestic threats. And this is where I think the escalation gets especially worrisome.
Yeah, you know, because they made it sound like, the Department of Justice made it sound like, this was kind of like one guy who had this kind of boneheaded idea, and it wasn't really a very big thing. But what you're uncovering and what the House committee is uncovering was that it goes a lot deeper than just one person's memo.
That's right. It fits a larger pattern that we've seen ever since January 6th and the exploitation of that event for political purposes. And that is, if you hold a political position or a policy position that's opposed to the goals of this administration, you are deemed a potential threat to democracy. And that you may come under then the surveillance of the Department of Justice, including the FBI. This is a gross abuse of the authority that we grant them to hunt down criminals, to pursue criminal activity, particularly threats to the country, and holding a differing political opinion, last I checked, as long as the First Amendment still is in place, is not a violation of the law.
Yeah, there are a growing number of attacks on Catholic churches in this country, well over 300 since the spring of 2020. Again, these are hate crimes, but we're not seeing the kind of focus on punishing the perpetrators. There's even radical transgender activists have been part of this violence too. In Bellevue, Washington, the police department arrested a 31-year-old who identifies a male identifying as a woman for vandalizing a local parish, smashing doors and spraying swear words on the building, yet the Department of Justice recommended no jail time. Brian, why are we seeing this two-tiered justice system when it comes to violence against Catholics and Catholic churches?
Well, I think we know the answer, and that is the Catholic Church as an institution has been a leader in upholding traditional moral beliefs, traditional moral values such as the sanctity of life, the traditional understanding of marriage, family as the fundamental social unit of society, and of course the role of religion in society. So it's no surprise if you're a left-wing ideologue, you see the Catholic Church as your enemy. And unfortunately now we have activists on the left vandalizing, desecrated, firebombing. We have churches that have burned. We have the Holy Eucharist or statues of the Blessed Virgin Mary beheaded. And the Biden administration has done very little to address this. And as you just noted, where they have caught somebody, they have opted for the minimal sentence possible. Contrast this, of course, with what they're doing with pro-life activists, including Mark Houck, a father of many children whose family was raided at gunpoint and who was forced to endure a long trial to exonerate himself lest he spend, a decade in jail.
Yeah, and he was cleared of those charges, I think, within about an hour of jury deliberation. One last question for you, and I think that what we continue to hear from Catholics and from leaders like yourself is that this is perhaps the most openly anti-Catholic administration of our lifetimes, if not ever. But do you believe that the church leadership is pushing back against the Biden White House sufficiently? And if not, why not?
No, church leadership is not doing enough. This is why lay groups like my own are doing what we're doing, but we certainly need the support of priests and bishops. And in my opinion, there should not be a single diocese in this country that's not sounding the alarm. These are the small ways in which potentially much more dangerous efforts occur. When you begin to deem a religious believer an enemy of the state, whether you're Catholic or not, this is where Americans need to be especially worried and begin pushing back. So yes, I call on all of our bishops, please speak out. Catholics in the pews are waiting to hear from you.
And we will. We know that you're staying on top of this, and we will here at Newsmax as well and follow up with you. Thank you so much. The president of Catholic Vote, Brian Burch. Appreciate you.
Thank you.